You're listening to Bigger Than Belief, real stories about real faith with real people whose belief is unbelievable. I'm your host, Adam Duxter. Thanks for joining us on Bigger Than Belief. Today is Friday, March 13th, and today a special part 2 of a 2-part episode series with Armin Assadi. And if you didn't listen to yesterday's episode, I encourage you to stop now and go check that episode out because his story has gone viral across not just Minnesota, but all across the country. And we wanted to have him in for an interview because of that, especially as we're watching what's playing out overseas in Iran. Armin was born in Iran and at a young age escaped, literally strapped to his father's back as they fled religious persecution through the mountain pass to Pakistan. Again, if you didn't listen to that part 1 yesterday, that's where you'll find that story. On today's episode, though, we looked at what happened for Armin next. Because on the surface, by the time he reached his mid-20s in America, some would say that he was living the American dream. He was financially successful, had powerful connections, and on the surface was doing really, really well. But as you'll hear in today's episode, it wasn't enough. Just as Armin reached the top, he reached his own personal bottom. That's where he found his faith once more. Today's episode talks about that journey and ends with Armin's final thoughts on what's next for Iran and what it could mean for the world. So here again, once more, Armin Assadi.
I cannot imagine what that would have been like. Before we go any farther forward, I mean, did you ever get a chance to ask your dad or talk to your dad? And what if you just signed the paper?
I did as an arrogant teenager. Because I had walked away from God. I was no religion. I was a little hoodlum, irreverent, acted like a low-life scumbag. And I had very irreverent conversations with him because, as a teenager, I thought money was more important than everything. And, when you're a teenager, you think you know everything when you know nothing. So I had those conversations with my dad as a teenager, and my dad is steadfast. He always said, Armin, if you have to lie about your faith for the sake of money, you never had it in the first place. And a man without faith is no man at all.
Your dad speak in like movie quotes all the time. So these are all, everything you said from your dad to this point is just like so profound.
My Dad's a good man. He's gone through a lot. He's gone through more than I have. And, when you experience that level of trauma, that level of pain and suffering and seeing the things that he's seen, he was a medic in the military, and he's seen a lot. And from my perspective, I think trauma and suffering is the author of wisdom. And when you've had firsthand experiences with the author of wisdom, you find a way to say things very succinctly and poignantly and make a point. And I think that's what made my dad so good at having those movie lines, as you say it. But it comes from a place of suffering,
I'm just picturing being a kid coming to a new place where you're new to the United States, to Minnesota. It's cold. And for better or for worse, I'm sure your classmates, the people you encountered, people your family encountered, were ignorant to what you'd just gone through. I mean, maybe they knew, maybe they'd heard.
Yeah.
But we have a good way in the United States of kind of living in a bubble sometimes, and kind of focusing on our own things. And so here you are, you've just had this lived experience, and now you're stepping into an entirely different universe in a sense. How hard was that transition to come here and to not let go of what you just experienced, but to assimilate into something entirely new?
Yeah. it's easier when you're a kid, you know. This is the fifth language I had to adopt, third culture I had to adopt, and I had to do it all before the age of 9. So it's like the younger you are, you almost pick it up instinctually, and it's a lot easier for a kid, you know. Like if I talk to anyone, they have no idea. Like they would just look at me and be like, oh, you're born in America, English is your first language. If you talk to my mom and dad right now, you would have a hard time understanding their accent, you know. So the assimilation process is fundamentally different and fundamentally more challenging the older you are. So I think I probably had it the easiest. My brother and sister, they were older. My brother's 9 years older. My sister is 13 years older. If I had to guess, I think the assimilation process was probably a lot harder for my sister coming here alone. And, you know, they had such dear friends. And if anything, I think those two probably had it the hardest. I think my parents were just happy to have their kids alive, you know. Everything else didn't matter.
I would imagine that when your faith drives you to move to a new place, I mean, your faith is everything to you. From talking to you a little bit, though, I do know that part of your story involves maybe falling out of faith or walking away from faith at some point. What was that period of time like for you? How old were you? You know, and what do you remember when you think back to that time about the role that faith played in your life?
I mean, you grow up on two different things that become the foundation of life for you. It's one, your family, two, your faith. And there was a period in my older days where I had to experience a type of life I never thought was possible. Like, for example, I had never learned or heard or seen or perceived a such thing as divorce. I was 11 years old when, and this is the answer to your question, maybe this is a roundabout way, but I remember going to a friend's house all the time on my bike. We'd hang out. His dad was always there. I just never asked where his mom was because if the mom's not there, she's probably dead. That's my logic. And one day, his mom came to drop off something for him. And I got so confused, you know, and that was the day I was 11, maybe almost 12 years old where I learned what divorce was. That's a thing. And I judged American culture like, you guys do that? I mean, I was dumbfounded. I didn't even know anything like that existed. I couldn't even comprehend how that could even be a possibility. Like you allow families to be torn apart. And by the time I was 15, the weird thing about freedom is when you don't have it, you're so busy trying to stay alive, you don't deal with a lot of problems because you have a big problem to deal with, which is life and death. But once you come here and you're not escaping death and avoiding extremism at all costs, the new challenge is you have to deal with your trauma. You have to deal with your past because you don't get the option of fight, flight anymore. And my family had to deal with that. And I don't think we did a great job of it. And it led to my parents starting a divorce process. They didn't divorce, but it started the divorce process. And that made me spiral. And at that point, I lost faith. I lost family. I walked away from everything and became something I never wanted to be. It was devastating.
How long did that last?
Till I was 26.
Wow.
Yeah.
So good amount of time.
Yeah.
What pulled you out of that?
I don't know how much I want to get into it, but, you know, I was living a criminal lifestyle for the most part. And I'd thrown a party for myself because that's what humble people do. And it was just this massive party in a private nightclub. I'd spent egregious amounts of money to host this party with hundreds of people there. And it was all about me, because yeah. And I just remember walking into this place, and it took me like 40 minutes just to get through everybody. And I just wanted to go grab my first drink, and I wanted to just go, take it in. I had arrived, I'm the man kind of thing, And I just remember going and sitting in this gaudy, god-awful looking big red velvet chair. But for whatever reason, it was perfectly positioned in the corner of the room. So I went and plopped down, and I'm holding this, drink from a $1,300 bottle. And I'm just trying to have this obnoxiously arrogant, pompous, whatever moment. And I just remember sitting there looking around, and my question was, how did I get here? But the first time I asked that question, it was very much how did I get here? Like, how did I arrive? And even a second of thought to that, it turned into, wait, how did I get here? And then you think about it some more. The question doesn't change. And I just kept asking it, but I kept thinking about it on a deeper level. And it hit me. It had been almost exactly 10 years. And I look back and I realized I'm in a room surrounded by a lot of wealthy, powerful, dangerous human beings. We all call each other family. And I remember the only reason this was not on my radar. This was not on my bucket list. This is not my goal, not my plan, not my hope. But it hit me for the first time in 10 years. When I left my family, I left because I was looking for a new family, because I thought I had lost my family and there was no coming back to it. And I started looking around that room, making eye contact, and realized I just spent 10 years of my life trying to build a new family, and there isn't a single human being in this room with hundreds of people in it that are actually family. And I walked out that room, walked out of my own party, went to the hotel and put a gun to my head and started playing with the gun, because that was it was the most depressing moment of my life. I achieved success that I never wanted and lost everything that I ever actually wanted in the process.
And you're 26.
26.
And it was just like that for you.
I mean, it was several minutes, you sit in it. You stew, you look around, you make eye contact, you read people's body language, you see the way they look at you, you start analyzing things differently. So it takes a little bit of time, but it's not a long time. It took maybe 5 minutes. And that's about as much as time was necessary to realize, wow, somehow I'm successful in all the worst, wrong ways possible. I have nothing to live for. What am I doing?
Because we don't have to get too into it, but I mean, at that moment, I'm guessing you've achieved money, you've achieved status, you've achieved friends. If there's hundreds of people, you are what everyone would say is the American dream. You're successful. You've come over here from another country, and you've made it.
Yeah, that's what I had, but I had nothing that meant anything, and I would have rather failed. There's nothing more depressing than realizing you just dedicated 10 years of a life to build a life that you never wanted in the first place and became someone you detest. I hated it.
Did you think it was going to end that night?
I wanted it to. I mean, that's why I started playing with my gun. I had reasons not to do it, but it wasn't for self-preservation. It was more organizational decision.
Why didn't it end that night?
Organizational decision. I think we were in a long drawn out conflict between conflicting organizations, and one of the leaders taking himself out. I mean, you might as well put a bullet in everybody else's head before you put it in your own head. It's a sign of weakness in that life, and you just you don't want to do that. So it sounds selfless, but I was a coward. Don't get me wrong.
How do you come back from that moment? I mean, that sounds like as low as you can be.
You don't come back. You make decisions. You weigh out options, and based on the options, you make certain decisions, and you set timelines, and you just follow that process and see where it ends up. In my case, at some point, I was wise enough. Maybe I credit my dad, as I asked, was there ever a time I was happy? And I realized, yeah, there was a time I was happy. And the next question was, what made me happy? And I went back to the same two answers. I had faith and I had family. And that was my answer, is I'm either going to find faith and reconcile with my family, or my option is death. And it's going to come at my own hands, or it'll be suicide by cop. It'll be whatever, whatever your process is. But no matter what, you're either going to find faith and family, or you're going to die. That's it.
You were telling me on the phone when we kind of were getting to know each other that you had a period of time where you were trying different faiths. You said, okay, faith it is. I'm gonna not just limit myself to being Baha'I. I'm gonna try everything.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm guessing like you're in your mid to late 20s. This is like the
26.
So it's like 2007, 2008.
2008.
And so what did that period, how long did that last? And what happened next?
I'm pretty well researched when I want to be. I don't like peer pressure to make decisions. I want to know what decision I'm making, because I had just lived a life for 10 years knowing that every decision I make impacted a lot more than me, and my decisions could impact human life on a scale that no 20-something-year-old should have to hold or manage or steward. And so when it came to the faith conversation, I just said, I'm gonna find out. I won't use the language I used, but it's kind of like, I'm gonna find out if this God crap is real, and I just went everywhere. I went to Buddhist temples, Hindu temples, Church of Science in Uptown. I went to Baptist, Lutheran, Catholic. I went to the Islamic Center to do Friday dua or Friday prayers at the Islamic centers and the mosques. I did rounds, man. If you had a spirituality of any kind, a religion, anything, I was like, teach me, suck me in, bring me in, make me one of you, show me this is real, and I just did rounds, and none of it really made sense to me. I'd go to the mosque and I'd go through the process, and which, by the way, the fact that I walked into a mosque coming from a family that has martyrs for not being Muslim, just want to point out that's how desperate I was to figure out, I should be there should be animosity between me and Islam, but I was so desperate for faith. I happily and open-mindedly walked into a mosque and said, convert me, bring me in. And, and they speak in Arabic, recite things in Arabic. You kneel, you sit up, they lay down, you sit up and get down. And, so it's like everyone's going down. And then I realize I have to go down. So it was like this the whole time. You're mumbling because you don't know what they're saying. And you go to a Catholic church and they kneel and get up and, and you're doing this. It's just like, I just never felt like I belong anywhere. And none of it, everything felt mechanical. It felt, I'm not trying to talk bad. I'm just talking about it from my experience, I wanted to belong to something, but I wanted to belong to something that felt absolutely fundamentally real. I'm not doing this because I'm trying to get access to something or avoid entry to something. It was like, I just want to know. And it's hard to belong when you don't know the language, you don't know the culture, you don't know what to say, you don't know how to act, you don't know how to behave, you don't know what to believe, you don't know how to communicate, you know, like you just feel like an odd duck out. And it was just all weird to me. Just none of it stuck until I found this awkward group of a church that was a men's group. And yeah, that's men's group changed pretty much everything. And that's a whole separate story.
It's after a period of how long?
6 months.
6 months.
4 months maybe.
That you're going through this searching.
Yeah.
And you connect with the men's group. Where were they? Were they here in the cities or?
Yeah. I had finally found a church that like I went back to more than once. And it was this predominantly black church. It was lively. You know, I grew up in the hood, so it was just like easier for me to blend in, and like they spoke the same kind of like, language, and I don't know what it felt comfortable to me, and so I stayed there. And somebody just randomly walked up to me and just invited me into something that was this men's group. I ended up going, and these just sincere dudes were there, and they were authentic, they were interested, they were trustworthy. We just talked, and that was kind of the beginning of a whole new life for me, because it wasn't a sermon, it wasn't some eloquent exposition of theology, it wasn't anything like that. It was just authentic men with authentic hearts that asked authentic questions and authentically cared and authentically loved, and it just made me feel like belong before they cared what I believed or how I behaved. And that changed everything because of them and because of that family. Shout out to the Rampies. It's amazing what love can do. It's like that old saying, no one cares what you, what is that saying? No one cares what you know unless they know how much you care. Like I lived that out, and they just loved me into submission. And I was not an easy person to get along with. I was arrogant, I was crass, vulgar, angry, and they just loved me like a teddy bear, and they broke me with love, and I started experiencing something that I was convinced wasn't real.
Was there a moment where you said, boom, this is it for me? This is what I'm going with?
Yeah, there was a church named, is it okay to say the name of a church? Okay, there's a church that I actually got saved in. It's called Substance Church. My pastors at the time were Peter and Carolyn Haas, and I mean, it was just weird coming into this church because it's like a startup church, you know, and there's no big building. You're meeting in like some raggedy old high school auditorium. There's nothing church feeling about it. You know, you're pulling into this parking lot, and you have these people that are like doing jumping jacks and cartwheels with vests on and flashlights and like welcoming you, and it's just a weird, surreal process, you know. And the whole time you're wondering like, what is happening here? And it was just a church that did a lot of making you feel like you belong very, very well. And I just remember Peter Haas getting up there, and he preached this message, and first of all, he threw me off. He had this like faux hawk, and he was wearing like torn jeans. And I was just like, what is happening? None of this fits what I expect. You know, there's no robes. There's no, just the whole thing threw me off, but it threw me off in a good way. You know, it sucked me in. I was just curious, and I was analyzing. I just hung on every word, and I just remember him going, I don't even remember the sermon. This is the funny part. I don't remember his sermon. But I just remember he got to the end, he prayed this prayer, and then he stopped, and I think he was probably supposed to go off, but then like he went right back in, and he started talking about like how many times do you have to end up in the bottom of a bottle to find out that the thing that you're looking for in life is not down there? How many times are you going to have to end up in a stranger's bed to turn over and look to realize the thing that you're looking for in life is not laying there? How many times do you know, like he just went down this thing, but I just felt like he was throwing, like Roy Jones Jr. boxing combos, he was just hitting you, and everything hit hard, but like you didn't feel shame. It was just this weird, like, yeah, why do I keep doing the same thing, going to the same places to try to find something I have never found there? Like, why am I not willing to just surrender, And that's where he took it, and he did this whole, like, cliche altar call thing, and I'm the anti altar call guy, where I'm like, I refuse. I'm too cool. But I just remember at that moment, it was just he just grabbed such an intense hold of my heart. I was hanging on every word. I just knew he was honest. I knew he was authentic. I knew he wasn't trying to have an agenda. His agenda was me. His agenda was my life. His agenda was his mission from God. His agenda was love. His agenda was just bringing people hope. It was just like, and when you live that kind of lifestyle I live, like those things matter. You're not listening to words, you're reading body language. Does this guy actually care, or is he trying to get something? And he was just one of the few. I was like, you care, and so I hung on to it. So it's like by the time he got up and did his altar call where he said, "Raise your hand," like it looked like somebody was holding a shotgun in front of me, because I did the 2-hand thing, and I'm not that guy. Like I wasn't at the time. I just I don't know, it was just a beginning of an entirely new journey, a new relationship, new life, finding out God is not dead, God is not distant, God is real, God is present. Like, just coming out of hell and suffering. It's, what I would compare it to? Getting to the other side of that mountain, and you have that euphoric experience of like, we just survived the unsurvivable, and you have hope again. That's what it felt like. That's exactly what it felt like.
Do you remember exactly when that was, that day, that sermon, that moment?
I don't remember the day, month, or anything like that, but I remember that moment. I remember I didn't leave that seat. I remember weeping like a child. I remember not wanting to move. I felt something I hadn't felt, and I didn't want to leave that spot. I wanted to keep feeling what I was feeling for as long as I could. I felt like I haven't lost my mom or dad yet, but I've lost people, and it's like when you're holding on to their hand before they die, it's like I almost felt like I was holding on to something that was like, it was so beautiful, it was so real, it was so, I don't know, it was so beautiful. I just didn't want it to end, so I just sat there, hoping, because I was just convinced this is temporary, this is an emotional high, I was like, I didn't care what this is, I want to sit in this for as long as I can. That's all I remember. Is I can describe building people, but all I remember is the moment.
And it's been almost 2 decades since then, and that hasn't changed for you. That part of your life has not changed.
I worked for that church. I worked for that church. I interned for them. I worked for them. I was discipled by them. I was discipled by the Rampy family, who runs Isaiah 61 Ministries. And I got discipled. I learned a whole new life. I learned a whole new mentality. I learned a whole new belief system. I learned new ways to behave, new ways to talk, new ways to lead, new ways to engage, new ways to have conflict, new ways to pray. Learning the power of prayer is not just, reciting things and saying checklists. Like, there's power in it. Power can actually shift entire communities. It can heal people. Like, for someone who knows nothing about faith to all of a sudden dive into it, there's a lot to learn, and you don't know what you don't know. But when you find out what is there and what's involved in this faith and what it can do and the way it can shift and alter your life in the most profound ways that you can't even possibly dream or imagine, unless you're a fool, you just don't have an option. You bet everything on it. You're like, screw everything else. This is what I want. I don't care what it costs. I'm putting all my chips in on this.
It almost feels like you've lived 3 lives, like your life, but before America, your life, here in America, and then your life, 2026 and beyond.
Yeah.
It is truly remarkable. I mean, I know that that's the path that you set on. It's the path you're still on. I can only imagine that through this process, throughout your whole life, you've been considering what's happening back in Iran. And I'm sure there's been times where that's more intense, you're focusing, and then other times where maybe a little bit less.
Yeah.
Obviously, right now, I'm guessing maybe the most intense that you've been focused on what's happening back in Iran.
Yeah.
But as you're doing that, and I'm sure you are the one person that people know, so they're coming to you and they're asking, Armin, what do I need to know? What would you want me to take away from what I'm seeing on the news or seeing on TV? What do you tell people?
I try not to. I think we're in such a sensitive, fragile, divisive, and divided period in human history that there is nothing you can say without it being politicized. So I preface a lot and just saying, this is me. This is my experience. This is how I'm feeling. Here's how the Iranian church or underground church in Iran is feeling. Here's people who are not even Christians in Iran are feeling. So I preface a lot because it's almost impossible to talk about it without turning into a gang war of some sort where it's immediately political. Immediately you have to choose sides and figure out if you're going to be a red gang or blue gang. And then, then it's the proverbial, drive-by shootings of just, I hate you, you hate me, we all hate each other, and this is why you're dumb, you're dumber, and it's just like so I don't know, it's tough, man. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I can tell you what my experience is. I can tell you what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and what I know the people that I know in Iran are feeling, but I don't know if I could talk about the situation as a whole. So
how emotionally intense has it been?
When grown-ups die, it's like you're okay with it during the Iranian protests, which obviously you have to be desensitized to death for me to be able to even say that. Even women, and no matter what was happening to the women, you're almost desensitized to it. But when the Islamic regime started killing children and they were making their parents, these are 2, 3, 4, maybe 8 years old, These are think about it, I have a 5-month-old all the way up to a 10-year-old, and I have 5 kids. So every age group that I was seeing of a child dying, one of which has my last name, it hit different. As a parent, it hits really different. And then when you find out the regime is making those parents pay every single bit of money they have per bullet that killed that child just so they can get their child back to bury their child, yeah, it's hard to be a good Christian, You get filled with a lot of animosity, to put it lightly. You get filled with rage, hate. You wish the worst. I punched a hole in my wall, And I always make the mistake of seeing the videos, or having the video sent to me, whether it's from the underground church in Iran or whatever. It's just, and I know, I'm not theologically ignorant. I know we're taught to, love our enemies. I know we're taught to pray for our enemies, but in those moments when it's so emotional, man, it's hard not to hate, You just want to, you wish death upon them. You don't pray love. You don't love them. But knowing what's right and what you feel aren't always the same. But now, I mean, it's different. You know, you get time to process. And, you see things that are happening, and you start seeing hope. And I would say the Iranian community, for the most part, is very hopeful. These aren't warmongers. They're not excited for war. They're not excited for destruction. They're not excited for the loss of human life. I think the reason they're celebrating, you know, in Iran, even if it is quite literally blocks away from where the first missile struck Iran, you know, there's people dancing and singing in the streets, and it's the rockets are hitting them. Why are they dancing? You know, and they're dancing because they hate war, but they've felt dead for 47 years, and that was the first time they felt a glimpse of hope of freedom. You know? And it's they know they're gonna probably be collateral damage in a war, and their families are going to be, but that was already happening to them indiscriminately, and it came with no hope. But now there's a war happening, and people are gonna continue to die, but they at least have hope that their children will have a future, you know. And so I'm not glorifying war. I'm not a fan of war, either are they, but this is freedom. They're celebrating freedom, not war. They're excited. They're grateful. They're hopeful. And I'm with them. I'm with them. Right or wrong. I'm with them for their freedom.
Just picturing you driving around the Twin Cities with this on your heart all day. And I mean, we've been in our own conflict the last couple of months here in the Twin Cities. So there have been plenty of people who have been very much emotionally invested the last couple of months, emotionally impacted by families, you know, the experiences that they've had. But at the same time, I'm picturing you driving around, you know, the last couple of days, the last few days, and seeing people who just are oblivious. And I can't imagine the juxtaposition that is when you're going through this and you're experiencing this, but you're walking by people at Costco, you know, that just have no idea. It's not what they're focused on. I can't imagine what that's like.
I mean, you know, the whole going viral thing, just to answer the question, is, you know, you don't start speaking up because you want to become an influencer, you know. Like, I don't have a nonprofit. I'm not trying to ask for donations. I don't have some product to slang, you know. You just want to be a voice for Iran, you know, and you know that that's around you. We live in America. We have amazingly good lives. We're sheltered. We're protected. We're safe. But you don't look down on people for that. It's like, that's why we're here. So we don't have to know about that stuff. But, you know, that's why you kind of almost, as an Iranian or part of the Iranian diaspora, you almost feel like, hey, it's not our job to be mad or be salty, as we would say in the hood. It was not to be disgruntled or judge or critique. It was just, let's be the voice for the Iranian people, because there's one culture in this world that the Iranians care about hearing and knowing their situation and being a voice to them, and that was the United States of America. And that's all we're trying to do, is be a voice for Iran, you know. And the beauty of this country is there's a lot of people that have big hearts. They really care. And I feel like the enemy of our faith uses our hearts to fight with each other. And that's why I hate the political stuff. That's why I hate the parties and like the way that comes against each other, because this is a world that is, especially this country, He's some of the most beautiful, heartfelt, caring, compassionate, empathetic people on earth. And we're so busy hating each other that we don't even see the beauty of our own culture and our own society. And this is a country that really does care.
Last thing I want to ask you, I mean, I know you'd said you've gone viral. I mean, your family has gone viral. The posts have been shared 10,000 times. The initial post is a follow-up posts have been shared thousands of times. I think there's some 20,000 people. I wrote some, 2,000 comments, 10,000 shares, 23,000, likes or interactions on the post of your initial story. Yeah. It has given you a platform. You're here talking in part because of it. What do you want people to hear from you? If they take one thing away from this conversation, which is difficult, I'm sure, but what would you want people to take away from having a chance to hear from you and your story?
I'm scared to say this, but I'll say it. I'll speak on behalf of Iran. Not the church, not Christianity. Let me just, if it's okay, I want to cast a vision if I could. For 47 years, if you look at Iran, it's almost the shape of a heart. And it's the heart of the Middle East. It's been the brain and the heart of the Middle East. And for 47 years, that country has been pumping terror, death, destruction, terrorism, fear, wars, persecution, taking away women's rights. It has been pulsating a level of evil that the entire world has had to pay for. And there's a change happening. And I'm not sitting here arguing, debating about how that change is happening, whether it's good, whether it's worked in the past or not. It's not my point. I'm just saying there's a change coming. And if the heart of the Middle East can stop pumping terror and murder, and it can start pumping the pulse of heaven, this isn't going to be a situation that only the Iranians are going to benefit from. The global society will benefit from it. If you look back to what Iran was like in the early 70s and 60s, if you look at the type of relationship America and the rest of the world had with Iran, if you look at what was taking place, if you see the amount of nonprofit or non-governmental organizations that were starting, it was a different world. And I just want to say, I know this process doesn't look good, and it probably isn't, but there's a future coming for that country that will benefit the entire world, especially the United States. And that world will be a lot better place. And that's what Iranians are celebrating. That's what the underground church is celebrating. And that's what the underground church is praying for. What's happening in Iran right now may have started as a resistance. It may have turned into a revolution. It may have become a war. But what I can tell you is this isn't just a resistance or a revolution. This is a resurrection of ancient Persia, which has for millennia been the center of coexistence. It's been the center of saving entire religious people from genocide. This is a resurrection, and it is a spiritual movement that will entirely change the face of humanity as we know it.
Armin, thank you so much for taking the time and sitting down and chatting. I mean, I have thoroughly enjoyed getting a chance to hear your story. So I'm hoping that anyone that interacts with this, whether they're listening or watching or however they consume it, get something from hearing from you. But thank you for being gracious with your time as a father of nearly a half dozen kids who are probably counting on you for getting home for dinner as we're taping this. Thank you for taking the time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor and a privilege.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to these past 2 episodes of Bigger Than Belief. If this is your first time listening to this show, thank you for checking this podcast out. We are a weekly interfaith podcast through WCCO television in Minneapolis. with the whole goal of sharing real faith stories of people living in our community and beyond, but also to understand the big issues we see in our community and in our world through a faith lens. If you enjoyed this episode or found it interesting, please take a moment and rate us 5 stars in the app if you haven't already. It just takes a minute, but it helps us in ways more than you realize. Also, please send this episode to a friend or take a moment to share some of the posts we've been putting out on our WCCO social media pages. You can also find my personal social accounts just by looking up my name. We'll be back as regularly scheduled next Thursday, March 19th, with a special Eid episode with a guest that I am really excited about. We'll see you then. In the meantime, stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you very, very soon.